big one inside the NFC North. The Chicago Bears hosting the Detroit Lions. And hi again, everybody, alongside the coach, Brian Billick and Laura Oakman. I'm Tom Brenneman. Welcome to America's Game of the Week. You go back to the Week 5 matchup, won by Detroit 24-13. The Lions got a career-best 163 rushing yards out of Jahvid Best. They also had a crowd that was in a frenzy, forcing 9 false start penalties. Today, Detroit has neither one of those in their corner.
Yeah, Detroit would love to repeat that formula, but like I said, they don't have that same circumstance. Let's start with the running game. Without Jahvid Best, it's probably going to come in smaller chunks. And in terms of getting pressure on Jay Cutler, without the crowd noise, without that surface, they're probably going to have to manufacture it in a different way. And then finally, when you're on the road, you can't turn the ball over. But in that regard, Detroit's in great shape. They lead the league in fewest turnovers.
Well, for Chicago's winners of 3 in a row, they've won 4 of their last 5. And boy, what a turnaround for Matt Forte.
Well, they have the formula, and it's 3 things. Run the ball, and run the ball some more. It sets up everything they want to do offensively, throws down the field off the play action. It sets up the defense. Defensively, they know they've got to generate turnovers, but as we said, that's hard to do against Detroit. And by the way, did I mention they need to run the ball?
I think I heard you say that.
Okay.
Let's check in downstairs with Laura Oakman.
Thanks, I'm standing here with Brian Urlacher. Last time you two teams played, you gave up 3 plays for over 200 yards. You've been emphasizing all week eliminating the big play. Tell me how you're going to do that today.
Just do what we do. Play fast, play sound, and get to the football. You know, get there, Matt. When you get there, get 11 guys at the ball.
The key to stopping Calvin Johnson is?
I have no idea. No one's figured that out yet. You know, we'll try and get a lot of eyes on the quarterback and get some pressure, but he's a good player.
You want to keep talking or you want to go hit someone?
Thank you, Lord.
Back to you, Tom.
All right, Laura, thank you very much. Calvin Johnson and the Bears colliding here today. Very warm. Temperatures near 70 degrees. Wind gusts expected to reach close to 35 miles per hour. And that could very much be a factor in the Windy City.
Well, particularly with the way these guys want to get the ball down the field. Detroit obviously looking to get the ball to Calvin Johnson. The wind could be a factor.
Detroit won the toss, chose to get the football to begin the game. And it's banged out of the end zone. It's something that Robbie Gould has been doing all year long. So now Matthew Stafford. He missed 19 games with injuries over his first 2 seasons. He's been healthy, and he has been very good. And it starts up front with a lineup that comes back from last year.
Yeah, and that's going to be challenged with the front 4 of the Chicago Bears. But as we said, the running backs, Maurice Morris and Keelan Williams, can they indeed have the kind of day collectively that Jahvid Best had the last time these 2 teams faced each other?
Stafford a first down throw, and that is a reception by Calvin Johnson, already making his presence known. That's a first down to the 39-yard line.
Great way to start for Detroit right now, serving notice. We know you're going to try to roll up and stop Calvin Johnson. Great reaching catch by Johnson here. If they can get this cranked up, they know he's going to get his 7, 8, 9 catches. They just hope to keep him out of the end zone.
Here he comes down.
Johnson 4 consecutive games with 5 or more catches and 100 or more receiving yards. Stafford looking around. He'll be run out of bounds. Bring up a second down and 10, and let's check in with Kurt Menefee back in Los Angeles.
Could it be the Eagles are blowing another 4th quarter lead? Early Doucette, 5-yard score for Arizona. Inside the 2-minute warning puts them up 21-17. Vic and the Eagles have the ball, trying to come back and win it. Tom, Coach, and Laura.
Ball to gain of 2 on the run by Stafford. A second down and 8. Pitch it to Nate Burleson. That is his 7th carry of the year. Ball came loose, but he has more than enough for a first down, and that's close to midfield. So back-to-back first downs for Detroit against the Chicago defense, which has gotten considerably better, especially cutting down on the big yardage play since early in the year.
And obviously in facing Calvin Johnson, this explosive Detroit offense, just what we talked about. Can they indeed roll to Calvin Johnson, take him away, and how much damage can Detroit do with their tight ends and running backs out of the backfield?
First carry for Maurice Morris, and a penalty flag is down. And this will be a hold against Detroit.
Holding, number 76 offense. 10-yard penalty. Still first down.
That's Jeff Backus, a left tackle, a #1 pick going all the way back to 2001.
Here it is right in the middle of the screen. And this is the difficulty on the road. We talked about you can't turn the ball over. Penalties is a factor as well. You can't put yourself behind the down and distance with penalties within a long drive.
Bobbled snap on a 1st and 20, and Johnson gets nearly 10 yards back. We'll call it 9. So 2nd down and 11 for the Lions.
The key to the success for Detroit when they've won is Matthew Stafford gets into a rhythm early. His efficiency has been incredible, much more so than we thought when he came out of Georgia. There was questions about his accuracy, but we've seen it before. We did his Atlanta game not long ago. When he doesn't get in rhythm, he gets unsettled. But when he gets in rhythm, as he is here right now, it can prove lethal for the Bears.
Right in the hands of Johnson once again. And the ball is loose. Picked up by Urlacher. First turnover of the game. Julius Peppers stripped it away.
The long arms of Julius Peppers just reaches out as he goes to tackle Johnson. The ball comes out, just laying there. We set it from the get-go. Turnovers, and as we said earlier, Detroit's #1 in the league in the fewest turnovers. This is huge on the road. This is just what the Bears need, a short field to get themselves started.
So now Jay Cutler brings Chicago out offensively. Cutler this season hitting on 59% of his passes, 11 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But the man to keep an eye on, number 22, Matt Forte. And they give it to him on 1st down, and that'll be a gain of 2. Forte leads the NFL, 1,241 scrimmage yards. And all of a sudden, this offensive line is starting to put things together with Lewis at right tackle and Spencer at right guard.
We've got to watch the tackles today. Jamarcus Webb and Lance Lewis with these wide rushes of Vanden Bosch and Averill from the Detroit Lions. Those are good matchups. The question is, how much help are they going to need to hold up in pass protection?
Forte the catch out of the backfield, and he's tackled at the 25. It'll bring up a 3rd down, and now a late flag comes in. All the way from the other side of the field, all the way down about the 10-yard line. There were only 10 players on that side of the field.
Personal foul, unnecessary roughness. Number 92, defense, 15-yard penalty. What happened is to the goal, automatic 1st down.
I think he means 93, Averill coming in, or excuse me, Vanden Bosch coming in late there. He said 92. It was Vanden Bosch, a late hit, particularly to the head. Whether it's the head or not, that is a late hit.
That's an automatic 1st down. Chicago at the 11-yard line. And they spotted to the 12, and they hand it off to Forte. He's inside the 10, close to the 5, tripped up by Amari Spivey. Of course, this defensive front, one of the most dominant in all of football, which is kind of curious because you can run against this Lions team.
Yeah, but they don't give up big plays. They generate turnovers. I talked about the tackles of the Chicago Bears under pressure. It's because of the inside presence of Ndamukong Suh, Corey Williams, Nick Fairley. You're not getting any help from the guards.
Forte, and that is a touchdown. Calvin Johnson losing a fumble for the first time since 2009. And on the opening possession here today, stripped by Julius Peppers, recovered by Brian Urlacher. And a touchdown carried by Forte, and a point after by Robbie Gould to make it 7-0 Chicago.
Straight down the hill, and then he's going to bend it back in here. The difference for the Chicago Bears when they started the season to now, they're not just running because they know they need to run. There's a psychological commitment, a philosophical commitment. They know they have to run the ball. You got to give offensive coordinator Mike Martz, he's kind of come over to the dark side. He knows if the Bears are going to continue to win, it's with an emphasis on the running game.
You know, early in the year, Chicago offensively looked lost. Curious play calling, poor blocking, bad throws, drop passes, penalties, you name it, they were a mess. In the back-to-back losses against New Orleans and Green Bay, they had 13 yards on 12 rushes in a loss against Green Bay, their lowest total in more than 50 years. The following week, you and I were here. They ran for over 220 yards against Carolina. They've only lost one game since.
And what did they do in that game? In their opening drive, 9 plays, 8 runs. It was a clear-cut commitment to knowing we have to be able to run the ball. What we say, Detroit, one of the best in the league at not turning the ball over. And what did the Chicago Bears tell us? They told us earlier, you know what? We don't rely on turnovers. We take takeaways. We don't rely on them to give us anything. We're going to go take the ball away.
Line drive kick sails through the back of the end zone, and again the Lions will start from the 20. That fumble, only the second lost fumble this entire season by the Lions. The other was on a Logan kickoff return against Atlanta.
We saw the approach of Detroit both in running the ball in a lot of different ways. One was tossing the ball even out to Nate Burleson. They've got to make up for the loss of Javid Best. They're doing it in a lot of different ways. We also saw a lot of quick throws by Matthew Stafford to get him started.
Maurice Morris, a gain of 5. And let's check in back in Los Angeles once again with Curt Menefee.
Last gasp for Michael Vick and the Eagles against Arizona. Vick throws it up. A.J. Jefferson picks it off. 5th blown fourth-quarter lead this year for the Eagles. When they began, they're now 3-6 after the 21-17 loss, Tom.
Well, it has been a disaster in Philadelphia. We had their opening. That's one of the few bright spots they've had all year long. Nate Burleson on the reception, and that is good enough for a Lions first down across the 35-yard line.
What we've got to watch in the Detroit Lions, Tom, is if indeed they can continue to run, does that force Chicago out of that shell two-deep defense they're known for that basically will take Calvin Johnson out of the game plan? They can continue to run. They have to bring the safeties, the Bears down. Now that's where they've got to take their advantage one-on-one on the outside to Megatron.
Megatron, you're dropping a Megatron on the air.
That's right. That's his nickname.
Out of the way. And again, it was Peppers right in the middle of it all. He injured his knee in the game against Detroit back in Week 5. Re-aggravated it again Monday night in the win over Philadelphia.
Julius Peppers, anytime you want to throw the ball away against Julius Peppers, you better recognize this guy has long arms. Matthew Stafford needs no better than that. Just the casual, although throw this thing out of bounds. And those long, we've already seen the long arm of Julius Peppers cause a turnover to Calvin Johnson. It almost created a turnover there.
Morris tries to find a hole, not much there. It'll bring up a 3rd down and 7 for the Lions.
The Lions the Bears pride themselves defensively on the fact that they can bring pressure with just their down 4. And it's not just Julius Peppers. They're getting great push on the inside from Melton, Adonijah. They get Adams back into the lineup. That's a formidable front 4 to throw at the Lions.
Blitz coming. What a throw by Stafford, and Burleson came back to get it. And now he loses a ball, and the Bears say they have it. They do.
After a great play to Burleson, Tim Jennings comes from the outside, didn't even know he was there, bounced it out from behind. Now, did the ball bounce out of bounds? Looks like it's in bounds. Everybody has control. 2 turnovers. This is, again, remind everybody, Detroit came in as the #1 team. This is a great play on the outside. Yeah, everything's in bounds right there. Ball hangs, it hangs, it hangs. Tim Jennings getting the ball. You got to be careful.
Challenging the ruling on the field.
What I think he's challenging is he wants to see if Chris Conte, coming from out of bounds, had the ball first. But it looks like Tim Jennings clearly in bounds. Let's watch this. Nice strip from behind. The ball's bouncing around, and it looks like Jennings ends up with it all the way. He never is out of bounds. That's a turnover.
So here this entire year, the Lions on the road had turned it over 2 times. And now they turn it over in each of their first 2 possessions in this critical game inside the division. No doubt about it. Jennings a strip, Jennings a recovery. Shouldn't take this long, it doesn't look like.
And the Bears were a little indignant almost when we talked to them about, you know, this is a tough team to take the ball away from. They lead the league in fewest turnovers, and that's when they laid it on that line about, hey, we don't count on turnovers, man. We go take it away. We're going to take it away on Sunday.
Well, we'd like to check in with the former head of NFL officials, Mike Pereira, over what they might be looking at in the replay booth. Mike, what do you think?
You know, I think they got to look at the fact here that 47 came back in and touched the ball, and I think it was still loose at the time. Now, he had been out of bounds, so in order for him to be eligible to actually touch this ball, he has to reestablish. So he's got to get both feet back down in the field of play before he touches, and I think we'll get a decent look at this now.
Right there, you're right, Mike.
Back in, both feet down.
So
I think he's reestablished.
Mike, the fact that he touched it before Jennings got control now supersedes that. You think Detroit's going to get this ball?
No, I think it's gonna stay because he reestablished. Watch him get right foot, left foot down in bounds. Yeah. So that's what they'll focus on in this.
Right there, you can see
review.
That foot being in bounds allowed him to reestablish. I got you.
And the heel of the left foot too. We got to get both feet back down. So here you're going to see him come back right, left, then touch, then he's okay.
Well, we thank Mike Pereira from our command center back in Los Angeles. And while we're waiting on the final verdict, let's again send it back to Curt Menefee in Los Angeles.
Saints and Falcons in overtime. 4th down, Atlanta goes for it from their own 30-yard line. Questionable decision, they get stopped. Easy for the Saints after that. John Casey, 26-yarder, is the game winner. 26-23, Saints go into the Georgia Dome and win it. Tom, Brian, and Laura.
Well, that was one wild game there today. The Falcons and the Saints, they generally are when those teams inside the NFC South get together.
And usually very, very physical. We had them a couple times last year, and boy, you come out of that game beat up on both sides.
Well, Jim Schwartz challenging the call on the field. And still no word yet from our referee, Pete Morelli. Here he comes.
It's just an agonizing time for the coaches waiting for this.
After reviewing the play, the ruling on the field stands. Chicago has the ball. Detroit will be charged with timeout and a challenge.
So by losing the challenge, Jim Schwartz loses a timeout. We welcome those of you who are watching that thriller. Just showed you the game-winning field goal by the Saints, going into Atlanta and coming away with a 3-point win in overtime. On the opening possession of the game, Calvin Johnson fumbled. It was recovered by Brian Urlacher, and the Bears turned it into a touchdown. Second possession, another Detroit fumble, this one by Nate Burleson. And now the ball belongs to Chicago again. Marion Barber met behind the line of scrimmage by Cliff Avril.
This Detroit front has given up some yards in the running game, Tom. And when you visit with Gunther Cunningham, their defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, what they're counting on is that pass rush with these wide alignment of the ends, the fact that they're very good at turning the ball over or getting turnovers. Typically their offense hadn't turned the ball over. That's a pretty good equation for success. They have been gashed in the run, which is usually, you question that from a defensive-minded football team, but it's all about getting turnovers and not giving up the big plays.
Cutler rolling, looking down the field, threads the needle to his former running mate at Vanderbilt, Earl Bennett, who returned last week after missing 5 games with an injury. He had 5 catches for 95 yards in the game.
Just a nice throw by Cutler. He is excited about having Earl Bennett back in the lineup. They disperse the ball all the way across the field. I don't know that you can really say there's an absolute go-to guy for Jay Cutler. Dane Sanzenbacher, the rookie, on third down is someone he looks to, but Earl Bennett is someone he's thrilled to have back in the lineup.
Forte's going to throw it. Not exactly the way you draw it up.
Well, Forte does everything else, runs it, catches it. Why not let him throw one? Gets to the outside, never really buys it. The safety almost wanted to come back up and bite on it, but no, this is the one that scares you as a coach. Does he have the judgment to just throw it away? Matt Forte did there.
Forte escapes one tackle, breaks it to the outside, penalty flag at midfield. Run out of bounds at the 45-yard line. What a start to this season by Forte.
Personal foul, grabbing the face mask. Number 92, defense. 15-yard penalty, automatic, first down.
It's one of those kind of just brushes it by. Never really got a firm hold of it, but just enough. It's still going to bring about the penalty. Awful tough when a guy like Forte can jump cut like that and all of a sudden jump to the outside. Averill knew, I cannot let this guy get to the outside because I'm the edge part of the defense.
Of course, Averill, the reigning NFC Defensive Player of the Week, had the monster game for Jim Schwartz out in Denver. 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, ran 1 back for a touchdown, but a rough start for the Lions. Fumbles by those 2, Johnson and Burleson. And now Chicago on the move after the 3rd Lions penalty. Bennett. Bears will tell you anything you throw his way, he will catch it.
I talked earlier about Chicago needing the running game to set up so many different things. We've already seen, by way of protection, the half-rolling Jay Cutler out after a play fake. This offensive line struggled early, as you mentioned. It's been solidified, but still, the more you can move them around the pocket, do it out of play-action fakes, it limits the pressure they can put on Jay Cutler.
Forte wrapped up by DeAndre Levy at the 25-yard line. You go back to the first 3 weeks of the season, we talked about the Chicago offense was just a mess. And look at the breakdown. Rushing plays where they were just 29% of the time and almost a 50-50 split during this 4-1 run.
And as I said earlier, it's not just in the running game. What that does for Jay Cutler, when they made that transformation from last year, prior to them forming into this running team, Jay Cutler was throwing more interceptions than touchdowns. When you run the ball like that, you get more touchdowns than interceptions.
Batted in the air and incomplete. Of course, that's another thing they've done. After getting this offensive line together, starting its 4th consecutive game, Cutler did not get sacked on Monday night.
And that's huge. Here you can see the inside pressure. We talk about it all the time. When a quarterback gets inside pressure, it limits where he can escape. Outside pressure he's ready for. He can step up in the pocket. He can roll out to avoid it. But inside pressure is something a quarterback hates.
Well, now Robbie Gould, who has been so good for Chicago since they picked him off waivers back in 2005 out of Baltimore. 43-yard try, and right down the can for Robbie Gould. 2 turnovers, 10 points. Jay Cutler and the Bears taking advantage of a pair of Lions turnovers here in the opening quarter. And a 10-0 Bears lead. This is such a critical game for Chicago. 1 game behind Detroit. Of course, everybody chasing Green Bay. The Packers yet to lose. But if Chicago loses this game, they in essence would be 3 full games behind Detroit, having lost to them twice in any kind of tiebreak situation. So now the Lions will get it for the 3rd time. 164th meeting between these division rivals. Chicago off to a big start. First 2 possessions for a team that had turned it over 5 times all year coming into play today. Fumbles by Calvin Johnson and Nate Burleson. Quick slant. Johnson up to the 26.
Seen it twice now, Tom, when Chicago has come out of their 2 deep. They brought the safeties down on either side. Both times you've seen Matthew Stafford step up and just deliver a quick little slant. They definitely have a plan for when they say single high defense to get the ball out of the hand quickly to the outside, because they don't see it a lot against this defense.
Stephon Logan able to slip through a hole off to the left side, picks up a 1st down up to the 31-yard line. Only the 5th carry all year long for Logan.
Key for Detroit right now is just weather the storm. You're on the road. You've turned the ball over in a way that you haven't before. You've already had 3 penalties you alluded to. If they can calm down, get a nice drive here, that, weather the storm of the crisis early, that's going to be a challenge for Detroit, a team still learning to be a good football team.
A drop by Maurice Stovall.
Scott Lanahan, the offensive coordinator, has done a nice job, but you can see in his plan he's trying to continue with the run. He's without Javid Best, where those big explosive plays. He felt like they could still get big plays in the running game, but he also knew he had to stay committed to it, if for no other reason to set up the passing game for Stafford.
Tillman and Urlacher converge on the stop of Morris. 3rd and long coming up for the Lions. Stafford is just having a terrific year. 19 touchdowns against just 4 interceptions. Of course, he has not enjoyed coming to Chicago. His only 2 trips here. He was injured in both games. Big pressure by Lance Briggs forces the incompletion, and the Lions will punt. Briggs is slow to get up.
Right here, up into the gap, right there now. Does the back have him? Does the guard turn out? Well, neither one there. Lance Briggs is good, but if you don't block him, he's real good.
Robert Malone just signed after Ryan Donahue injured his quad kicking field goals in practice earlier in the week. And a good sign for the Bears, Devin Hester, who was injured, an ankle injury on Monday night in Philadelphia, is good to go. The NFL's all-time leader in punt returns for a touchdown. And he's off to the rush. And the punter Malone able to run him out of bounds at midfield.
Well, in the open, I went through a laundry list of things they needed to do. One of them should have been, don't kick the ball to Devin Hester.
Perhaps a touchdown saving tackle by the punter, Robert Malone, to slow down Devin Hester. Forte driven to the deck by Stephen Tulloch on first down.
You can see the punter right here. He's your last line of defense, and I use that term loosely when I talk about a punter. How often do we see that become an embarrassing moment for a punter? But this guy, Hester was out the gate had he not made this play, and believe me, come Monday, his teammates, Hester I'm talking about now, going to give him a ration of grief now for being brought down by a punter. But that was a touchdown saving tackle by the punter, the new punter, Rob Malone.
Loss of 3 on the Forte carry on first down. Blitz coming, and Cutler just does get it away. The heavy heat by the safety, Amari Spivey.
We said that Detroit was going to have to be more creative about bringing pressure on Cutler, that a 4-man rush, not at home on the turf with the crowd noise to aid them. They were creative there in bringing Spivey from the outside.
So third down and 13. They need to get to the Detroit 42-yard line for a first down. And they'll get there on the catch by Bennett. Of course, Bennett wearing those orange shoes again here today. He was fined $5,000 for wearing them on Monday night.
And I can't tell you what a comfort zone it is for a quarterback who for a few weeks has not had that absolute go-to guy, to have a guy like Bennett back in the lineup. You got to be careful you don't just become solely focused on that guy, but no one has really stepped up the way we've seen Bennett today already step up to become that guy.
And there's really the forgotten man inside the Chicago offense, Johnny Knox. He led the Bears with nearly 1,000 receiving yards last year. There are over 100 players in the league with more receptions this year than Knox.
Just a deep in route. You're counting on underneath coverage to be drawn up either by a route or by play action. Knox and Hester are one of the fastest tandems of receiver. They'll take the proverbial top off a defense, but the ability to make those inside cuts and inside routes is a big part of the passing offense for Mike Martz.
Behind the line of scrimmage, Levy dropping Forte at the 25, a second down and 15.
Just a nice job of pulling the trigger. We always talk about the ability to read and react by a linebacker. Here coming in behind the block, actually, but the fact that he reacted so quickly allowed him to make the play.
Levy's been a nice player for Detroit. Drafted him out of Wisconsin in the 3rd round 3 years ago. Did he stay in bounds? No. Try to keep the toes just in front of that white stripe down the sideline. It's 3rd and 15.
Yeah, just wasn't able to keep that right foot. Take a good long look at here. Looks like he has control. The left foot is down. Oh, I don't know. This might bring about a challenge now. Jay Cutler's calling for it. If he had a flag in his pocket, he'd have pulled it out. Kind of subtle on Lovey's part. That's a confident, subtle challenge.
Lovey sort of saw it.
Sure. Hey, take a peek at this, okay?
Chicago 1 of 3 on replay challenges this year. Three things to remember. The call on the field is incomplete. 2 possession, 3 were the feet in bounds.
Yeah, and the key there being that it was ruled incomplete. Is that definitive enough to say it looks like there's the slight bobble and then that left foot, just by us talking about it this way and looking at it in the break, too much discussion for my liking. I think the ruling on the field holds. See, just as he starts to lose it right there and regain it, that foot right down in there starts to come out.
After reviewing the play, it is a catch. The ball will be placed on the 17.5-yard line, third down. Chicago will not be charged a timeout.
Well, everything going Chicago's way here in this opening quarter. I'm a little surprised by that reversal.
Yeah, particularly since it was called incomplete to begin with. Anytime, that's my rule of thumb. Anytime it takes us that long to talk about it, then it's okay. There's not enough definitive evidence.
Well, they're going to go ahead and let the game clock run out. The final seconds of the opening quarter. 10-0 Chicago. Fox NFL Sunday continues after a word from their local Fox station. Third down for Chicago at the Lions' 17-yard line, and Cutler to throw it. Roy Williams lost his footing. So the field goal unit comes out once again.
Just a miscommunication there. You zigged when I thought you were going to zag. He thought he was going to the back of the end zone.
You know, you look at everything that has happened, and everything clearly 100% in Chicago's favor through a quarter and 4 seconds. 2 turnovers, 3 penalties for the Lions. Average starting field position midfield for Lovie Smith's team. These last 2 tries now, field goals rather than touchdowns.
And those are the type that come back and catch you now when you miss scoring opportunities.
35-yarder, good snap, good hold, and Robbie Gould does what Robbie Gould does. That's converted. Jim Schwartz looking for answers from his team and from the officials. (13-0) Chicago, just seconds into this second quarter from Soldier Field in Chicago. And great to have you with us for the Bears and the Lions. Detroit 6 wins against 2 losses. One of their victories against the Chicago team back in week 5 at Ford Field. But ever since then, the Bears have been all about Matt Forte. He has the game's only touchdown and has made a friend for life. In the first 2 drives of the game, Detroit moved the football. Lions have more total yards of offense in Chicago, but there's 2 critical fumbles. Incomplete on first down. You know, Brian, you talk about it all the time, and I think, you know, most fans, you grow a little leery of hearing the quote-unquote coach speak all the time, turnovers and, you know, red zone and all that kind of thing, but it really is amazing. You watch week in and week out, the teams that turn it over generally lose.
3 biggest determinants for success: turnovers, big plays, and efficiency in the red zone. Has been, is now, and always will be the 3 major determinants for success.
Set up the screen, and Morris lost his footing. It'll be 3rd down and 10 on the incompletion.
And here's what you're talking about, Tom. And you people have got to remember, coming in today, this is why Detroit's been so good. These are interactive differentials. By that I mean the turnover margin. It's not enough just to get turnovers. You can't turn the ball over. They were a plus 13. Explosive plays as well. Look at these three teams, Houston, Detroit, and San Francisco. A big part of why they're good is they lead in every game in terms of turnover differential and big plays. Getting more big plays than you give up defensively.
3-and-out. Johnson was open. Stafford had a very tough time just making completions during the pregame warm-up today. Don't know if it's a win. Don't know if he's feeling the effects of that ankle injury. He is wearing gloves on his throwing hand today.
And that surprised me a little bit. We were supposed to get some rain earlier, and usually about game time, it has not shown up. I'm not quite sure why he still has those gloves on.
And now Robert Malone. Chicago's going to get great field position again. What a punt by Malone. All the way back to the 18. But another good return by Hester. Crossing the 40, and again it's Malone, who had a hand on him, couldn't get him out of bounds, and Hester will take it the distance. The 12th punt return for a touchdown, the most in NFL history for the electrifying Devin Hester. 82 yards.
Look at what, this is the classic out-punting your coverage. Look how everything has collapsed to that hash. And that gives a guy like Hester, they thought they had him pinned down, and it was actually a good punt. You want him to field it inside or as he approaches the numbers, but you cannot collapse the coverage team the way they did. It was the classic out-punting your coverage team.
Of course, every scoring play is a play under review this year in the NFL.
The previous play will be reviewed.
I want to see if he steps out of bounds here, obviously. Gets right to the edge. Malone starts to come out. Did he get enough just to get him out of bounds? No.
We got stadium love.
After reviewing the play, the ruling on the field stands.
You can see right there. No way was he out of bounds. A little bit of a surprise challenge in that was right down the Detroit sideline. They had a pretty good view of it. Oh, not a challenge, I'm sorry.
That was just a scoring review on every scoring play this year in the NFL. Well, what a great start for the Bears. And what a disastrous start for the Lions.
And that's what we talked about coming in the ways that you kind of figure, well, Detroit's been so good with not turning the ball over, and here they give up 2 turnovers. Not giving up big plays, well, that's a big play. And special teams are a part of it as well. Big plays, turnovers, they have forever been a part of this game. Obviously, Lovie Smith, Nolan, and Devin Hester, this is a guy that's been so good for Lovie Smith in his time here. A second-round draft choice. Changed the way people think about taking a guy out of college in terms of his punt return potential. People are always thinking, well, with the new kickoff rule, would that diminish people taking a guy like Devin Hester in the future? They watched enough of this tape. They're going to take those guys anytime they can get them.
As we were wondering if Hester was going to be able to play today after injuring his ankle in the Philadelphia game on Monday night. Logan will bring this one out. Runs into his own man. And he has some daylight. Good return by Stephon Logan up to the 30-yard line. Well, coming up this December, 2 of the most storied conferences in college football will culminate their seasons with 2 epic championship games for the first time in their history. Fox Sports will have them back-to-back nights. The Pac-12 title game Friday, December the 12th, and the Big Ten championship game from Indianapolis Saturday, December the 3rd. only on Fox Sports.
Points off of turnovers, that's part of the turnover number count that we're talking about. Detroit needs to create a turnover on its own now to put its offense on a short field, because right now they're having to go the length of the field on every drive.
Careless and Chris Conti exchanging words. No gain on a first down run by Morris. Great coverage by Tillman. 3rd and 10.
Chicago and Lovie Smith are known as a cover 2 team, but we can see right here, this is off coverage by the corner. Great one-on-one breakup by Charles Tillman. Chicago, and every time we talk about Chicago being a Tampa 2 team, a cover 2 team, given Lovie Smith background coming from Tampa, there's always a little grin on his face, because the fact of the matter is they play a lot more cover 3 than they have in the past. They are no longer a pure Tampa 2 defense.
Just nowhere to go. Great coverage all over the secondary by Chicago, and the Lions will punt again.
Excuse me, over here. I want you to notice Peppers is on the inside. He's normally on the defense's right side. He was on the left side tackle. They're moving him around, left end, right end, on the interior. You want to double Julius Peppers, you got to find out where he's lined up first.
Well, here comes Hester. Will they punt him the ball or just punt it out of bounds this time? Well, they angle near the sideline, but it's returnable from the 15. Hester, as a flag comes in, still on his feet and caught from behind at the 48-yard line. But this one, we'll see if it's coming back.
During a return, holding. Number 35 to the receiving team. 10-yard penalty. First down. Timeout.
Just right there, kind of gets his hand up on it. Looks like 81 got a bit of it.
Great city of Chicago, Illinois. Welcome back to Soldier Field. Bears winners of 3 in a row, and a fumble. You said it, Brian Billick, just a moment ago. Detroit needed to pick up a turnover, and it looks like they have it.
Detroit needed this desperately to be able to put their team on a short field. Just the ball comes out as the fullback brushed by the quarterback, Jay Cutler, knocked the ball out, giving Detroit just what they need in terms of trying to crawl back into this game. Boy, just sits there, and as a coach now, your life just stops and runs before you. Takes forever for someone to jump on that ball.
Well, now a break as Amari Spivey covered it up. See, Stanford started well. For his last 7. Morris, a good strong run close to the 10, just short of a first down. A must touchdown here for the Lions.
We talked about it before. What did I say earlier? The 3 determinants for success: red zone efficiency, turnovers, and big plays. Now, red zone efficiency means you come away with a score, and these two teams are 1 and 2 in terms of scoring in the red zone. Not always touchdowns. They need a touchdown here, but at the minimum, you have to have scoring efficiency in the red zone. They're clearly in field goal range. They need a touchdown.
Dangerous throw there by Stafford, the seldomly used Will Heller. He only has 4 catches all year long.
Nice coverage on the outside by Nick Roach. He's here on the line of scrimmage. He's going to jam and run with the tight end. Nice job by the linebacker. You're right. Very dangerous throw. Anytime you throw flat inside the 10-yard line, bad things can happen.
3rd down and 2. Too tall for Calvin Johnson in the back of the end zone. So they run the ball on 1st down for 8 yards, and then they go to the air twice and cannot get a first.
Now you can see here, even this ball was a bit flat, all but a high flat throw. Needed a little more arc to give Calvin Johnson a chance to go up and make one of those patented rebounds into the end zone.
Now bear in mind, with Ryan Donahue hurt, their regular punter, Robert Malone took his job at that spot and holding. Good snap, good hold, and Hansen drills it through, getting Detroit on the board, 20-3 game.
And Tom, you're exactly right to bring this up. This is nothing subtle about this. A kicker, it's all about psychology, and I got a new guy holding for me that can really get into the head of a kicker. Hansen's been at this a long time.
21 in a row made by Hansen inside of 40. Take a look ahead to next week on Fox NFL Sunday. The season marches on. The Packers look to stay undefeated. Cam Newton and company will try and change that. Cowboys and the Redskins. We'll see the 49ers. It all begins with a Built Ford Tough Fox NFL Sunday pregame show at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. Check out listings for the games and time in your area. Lions will be at home against Cam Newton and the Panthers. Green Bay at home against Tampa Bay. You and I have been stunned by the disappointing year this year from the Buccaneers.
Last year, their formula for success. What do we keep talking about? Turnovers. They had minimal turnovers last year. Didn't have the roughest of schedules. Really believed in Josh Freeman. Hasn't been that way this year. They've turned the ball over a great deal. They've not been able to generate the consistency that they had last year, and it was a tougher schedule, or has been a tougher schedule.
No Devin Hester returning kicks. Johnny Knox won't bring this one back either. Well, some of the heroes from earlier games today. Tony Romo and the Cowboys blast Buffalo out of Cowboy Stadium. Arian Foster and another Texans win. Dallas now 5-4, by the way, and the stunner of the day, and maybe it's not anymore. Maybe perhaps all of us had overrated Philadelphia when the year began.
Philadelphia had kind of gotten its stride back. That loss last Monday night to these Bears, I think took a great deal out of the Philadelphia Eagles.
I don't think anybody overrated Philadelphia more than Vince Young did. Forte breaks a tackle and carries for close to 7. He was the guy that talked about that dream team business, you may remember.
Yeah, the entire team, including Andy Reid, cringed when they heard that. And you've talked about it many times, Tom. It's why, particularly in a game like basketball where they tend to do this a lot, why all-star teams can't beat a good regular team. It's not a matter of just sheer talent. You've got to be able to come together with the right personality. Role players. Hard to have the right role players when you have a team, a dream team of superstars.
2nd down and 2, right back in the hands of Forte. And he appears to be short of a first down. Met by Dick Fairley, the rookie out of Auburn. Forte this year is certainly very much in the top 3 candidates for the league's most valuable player. Talking about total yards from scrimmage through a team's first 8 games, far ahead of the pace set by Marshall Faulk in '99. His yards from scrimmage record broken by Chris Johnson 10 years later.
And his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, mostly with those little quick screens that we see.
3rd down and pitching. Boy, you wonder about that play call. 3rd down and a foot.
particularly with a defense that's known for the play of its outside wide players on both sides. Look at the width of this. This is hard to get outside. They were just counting on Van den Bosch to come down inside. Van den Bosch, a veteran that realizes, look, I can't help. Had you given the ball inside, I couldn't help anyway. Nice athletic move on his part, getting back to the outside because he was vulnerable. Had he not forced the play back inside, that thing might have gone out the gate. Good series by Detroit.
So Adam Podlesh puts a foot on it. And Logan at the 30. Escapes one tackle. He's dropped all the way back to the 26-yard line. Good coverage by Craig Skillets. Now the Lions with a chance to capture some momentum. Trailing 20-3. First down for Matthew Stafford and the Detroit Lions from their own 25, trailing 20-3. First completed pass in the last 10 thrown by Stafford. Caught by Burleson, and that's a gain of 3 on first down.
We've seen Chicago come down into the proverbial 8-man box, get into the off coverage I talked about earlier. But they know that Detroit needs a big play right now. And they're more vulnerable when they get into that single high defense that I referred to. Last couple plays now, we're seeing a lot more cover two. They know that they're going to make Detroit go the length of the field rather than the big shot. Johnson down here is the guy they're going to have to get to if they're going to make a big play. If they're in single high here, this might be the place for it.
Tried to sneak one in there to Titus Young, the rookie out of Boise State, who had his first career touchdown 2 weeks ago. Let's go back to Kurt Menefee in Los Angeles.
After a 52-yard field goal by David Akers, the 49ers come out and onside kick it against the Giants, and they recover it. Plus, they take advantage, sets up another Akers field goal. This one from 39 yards away. They lead at 9-6, approaching halftime in the battle of first-place teams. Tom and Brian?
Can't wait to see the Niners again. We saw their only loss of the season. Trying to get a big win at home today over the Giants. Third down and 7. Johnson, the catch, denied the first down.
Nice job by the Chicago defense, but in this instance, Calvin Johnson really needed to make sure he was at the first down depth.
And what a stop by Tillman. That's a big man he brought down.
Now, previously, right now, the Detroit Lions have done a good job in where they've tried to punt the ball. They've tried to pin Hester to the sideline. It just hasn't worked. I'm not so sure you just don't kick this thing out of bounds now.
And that's exactly what Robert Malone does. The question is, where are they going to spot this football? They spotted at the 23.
This is what I'm talking about here. This is a nice job. If you're going to kick it to them, this is the previous punt, then go ahead and pin them in. They've got the rush lanes, they're in, or the coverage lanes. But the problem is Hester is so special, gets outside the coverage. Here you can see Stelz leading the way for him. When you get a guy pinned like that to the sideline and they still get a return, they did the right thing in kicking the thing out of bounds.
But you know what every Lions fan is saying? That was the last punt. Too little, too late. You kicked to him twice before already.
Yeah, I think I might have learned my lessons after the first one.
26.
Forte for a gain of 1. It's been a very slow start for Forte. They've done a nice job in bottling him up here in the opening half. Pretty laid-back crowd for a late afternoon start here in Chicago.
Well, too much too early. They're feeling too good about themselves at 20-3. They need something to happen here to get them pulled back into it.
Butler runs into his own man, and then for the first time in the last 2 games, he is sacked. Lawrence Jackson now with 4.5 of them on the season. He has been a nice pickup coming over to trade from Seattle.
Well, you can see here they're committing bodies to protection, and that's the key. After a play-action fake, they move Cutler to the outside. They've got plenty of bodies here. It's a simple 4-man rush by the Detroit Lions that limits it to a 3-man route. When you commit that way, limited options down the field. But it's what has worked for them as of late to protect Cutler.
Well, Gunther Cunningham has to be very pleased with the way his defense has played here in this opening half. They've only allowed 76 total yards. Cutler, with a flag down, takes a vicious lick. Knocks his helmet clean off. There is a flag all the way back to the 10-yard line. My, oh my, what a hit delivered on Jay Cutler.
Now the question is, are you giving yourself up? I don't think he had an opportunity here. He might have wanted to get down, but he didn't have a shot at it.
Holding, number 67. Penalty will be declined. 4th down.
Well, it looked like Ndamukong Suh tore the helmet off of Jay Cutler. Of course, Suh has been recently voted by his peers as the dirtiest player in the league. Fined on 3 different occasions last year. One of them a shove on Jay Cutler, you may remember.
And I don't know that I buy into it. This guy plays hard. He plays aggressive. Sometimes you get a rep deservedly, sometimes not. I like the way the guy plays.
He had the $20,000 fine on Cincinnati quarterback Andy Dalton in the preseason. Fair catch made at the 35. Of course, we remember the Pistons. They were the bad boys of the NBA. Are these guys the bad boys of the NFL?
Anytime, well, it starts with their coach as well, Jim Schwartz and Jim Harbaugh. There, you remember, Ndamukong Suh is a dominant, physical, tremendous athlete. Anytime you play good, tough, aggressive defense, you get a little bit of a rep. I remember, when I had that great group in Baltimore, and obviously with the leading single-season defense in the history of the game, they thought we were a bunch of thugs. I was a gang leader, but you know what? They played good, hard football.
Last time I checked, you've got a ring on that finger right now. Stafford has been all over the place here in the opening half. First down completion for a gain of 4. That'll be to Nate Burleson. It's not been a very good first half for this 3rd-year quarterback out of Georgia, who played in just 3 games last year. Had the shoulder injury on 2 different occasions, but has been off to a great start and stayed healthy so far this year. Good running room, and that's a first down carry for Maurice Morris to the 49-yard line. And so here you are, Coach Billick, with 6 minutes to go until halftime. Everything clearly has gone Chicago's way. If Detroit scores a touchdown here, well, they take a lot of that sting out of the first quarter and a half.
And let's remember how good a second-half team the Detroit Lions are. They're capable of doing it. Matthew Stafford needs to calm down. He looks unsettled right now. We had their game against Atlanta where it was the same way. He just didn't seem to get into a rhythm.
More stuffed on first down for maybe a yard.
I'm a little surprised that given the amount of single high safety, and again, we're talking about the difference between a cover 2 high safeties, a single high safety, meaning cover 1 or cover 3, that we haven't seen more vertical shots to Calvin Johnson down the field to take a shot. Here you can see the safeties are going to stay high. Right now, if they stay there, they're trying to protect. Now they're coming down late. Now they're going to give them the single high. He'll have an opportunity. And they're changing it up a great deal. As I said, Chicago is no longer a predominantly cover 2 team. But up 20-3, you're going to see a little bit more of that cover 2 because the job number 1 is let's don't give up a big play.
Third down 5. downs in the game. And they will on a catch by Titus Young to the 30-yard line.
It's become a real chess match here. Peppers is coming off this right side here. They're trying to change it up to get the matchup so you can't double Julius Peppers. They went from a single high defense to a cover 2. That's an excellent throw. That's a tough pass to complete against a cover 2 defense. Nice throw by Matt Stafford.
Chicago spends a timeout. It's first of this first half. 3:49 to play until halftime. Lions on the move. Tree in the world. First and 10 Detroit. At the Bears 31-yard line, trailing 20-3. Catch made again by the rookie out of Boise State, Titus Young. Back-to-back receptions for Young. Talked about Matthew Stafford wearing a glove on his throwing right hand. Laura Oakman, what do we know about that?
He told me early on that it was strictly for this wind, which is whipping down here pretty considerably on and off. He's never worn them before. He wanted to help with the grip. But I will say this, you guys, he's fidgeting with that right glove. Don't forget he jammed a finger on that hand last week. He says it's for the wind, though.
Well, I tell you, I've heard of a lot of things. I've never heard of a glove made for the wind.
Yeah, wet weather, cold, but not for the wind. But, you know, part of it, too, is in anticipation of it, and you know, you always get ready for the weather. They look at the forecast. As I said, it was forecasted pretty regularly that we were going to get a lot of rain and it was going to be colder. If you practice with it all week long in anticipation of it, and that's what you've done, then I can see coming in with it. But certainly the elements today did not dictate having a glove on.
Stafford 13 out of 24, 103 yards. Makes a handoff and a sack. The first man there, Henry Milton. Anthony Adams there as well. Of course, Milton was challenged publicly by his coach, Lovie Smith, to step up his game after a big start.
You just get a little stunt there, one in behind the other. And we talked about the fact that it's not just Julius Peppers that's bringing pressure for the Chicago Bear front. They've gotten great productivity across the board, and particularly on the inside. We talk about it repeatedly. Inside pressure is very difficult for a quarterback.
Of Calvin Johnson. They're saying incomplete pass, and a ball, quite frankly, that should have been caught.
They got the look they wanted. They got the one-on-one matchup. This is something that's usually automatic for Calvin Johnson. They needed this desperately here, and I don't know that he got a hand on it. I think this is just a flat drop.
That was nearly deflected by Tillman into the hands of Conti. That play to drive, 3rd and 15. This time they find the tight end for the first time in the game. Brandon Pettigrew for a first down inside the 10.
Great throw by Stafford under duress, finding the hole in the soft zone.
First and goal for the Lions. 2 timeouts remaining. And a minute 57 to play until halftime. Penalty flag down. Well, I beg your pardon. I thought we had a flag come down. Must have been inadvertent.
They got bottled up here, one on top of one another. Johnson was supposed to be in behind Titus Young, and they kind of got banged up here with really no place for Matthew Stafford to go. That's what turned it into a dangerous throw with DJ Moore almost intercepting it.
coverage again by Charles Tillman. I mean, he is right there with Calvin Johnson. It brings up 3rd down and goal.
They were trying to time this up right here. Just a back shoulder throw. Just a little bit of a push off there. Again, the throw was very flat and high. Laura talked about the finger being a problem, the glove. He just doesn't seem as accurate as he has been up to this point in the season.
Sacked all the way back to the 18, and again it's Julius Peppers.
Once again, they've got Julius Peppers lined up on the inside of the defense. They're clearly trying to get matchups right here on the inside. Normally he's on the right side defensively, coming from the outside. They're looking for the matchups here against the center Raioli. Peterman, the right guard. So far he's gotten home inside twice.
Chicago spends a timeout, wanting to stop the clock and get the football back after this field goal attempt by Jason Hanson. You know, Brian, I got to ask you, if you're a head coach, Matthew Stafford has not been sharp, has not been crisp at all here today, and he's wearing the glove. Now, we don't know if he's wearing it because he's trying to protect that injury he had a couple of weeks ago in Denver, slight albeit. But for a guy who doesn't wear a glove, and he's wearing one now, as a coach, would you tell him it's time to lose that thing?
Yeah, you know, my first question is, you got a new glove contract or what? You know, maybe you ought to lose that thing. And it can be as simple as maybe you don't have a feel for the ball. You don't have a feel for the texture. Something, I don't know what it is, needs to account for his inaccuracy.
So the new holder, Malone, a 35-yard field goal try by Hanson, which is good. So 1st and goal from the 6. Turns into a field goal. Well, right now let's go to Kurt Menefee to see what's coming up on the Visa halftime report.
Coming up on the Visa halftime report, we'll have scores and highlights from a busy week 10 around the National Football League. I don't know what to do here. Somebody, what is, back to you. Wait a minute, you weren't supposed to do that.
Well, Terry wasn't wearing a glove, and he went 0 for 7.
He did have a bandage on that left hand, though. So. All in all, we're sitting here at 20-6, so I'm going to temper this a little bit. But all in all, Detroit, with all the things that have gone against them, again, they're a pretty good second-half team. But for them to be a good second-half team, Matthew Stafford's going to have to find that rhythm. Glove or no glove, he just has not gotten in any kind of rhythm in this first half.
Now Hanson, in his 20th year out of Washington State, will put a foot on it. Johnny Knox from the 5-yard line. And Aaron Berry there to chop him down. Well, you talk about kickers. 2nd round. The 2nd pick in the 2nd round, I might add, by the Lions, going back to 92. 303 games. 503 different teammates. Brian Billiken has more field goals from 50 yards out than any kicker in the history of the league.
Well, remember a couple years ago we did their game. He was their franchise player, which was part of the problem. When your kicker is your franchise player, you need to get some better athletes. They have those athletes here, but what an asset for Detroit over the years in Hanson.
And now Cutler. Oh my goodness, is that a fumble or is that a pass? Was it intercepted? Whistles blowing all over the field. And what is the call here? Are they saying a ball hit the ground? That's what they're saying. And that it was a forward pass.
Ruling on the field.
Well, it was a pass. He got it just pushed. Yeah, it bounced its way in. He didn't know if it was a fumble or an interception, so he just went with it. But that push constitutes enough to be a pass. Oh, boy, they dodged a bullet there.
Corey Williams had him repped up. Now to the Bears, just say, hey, we caught a break right there. Let's just run this thing out. Nope, they're throwing. Cutler looking around. Incomplete. Tell you what, the Lions still sitting on 2 timeouts here, and after back-to-back incompleted pass by Cutler, you know, if they run it, they can call a timeout, and they should get decent field position one more time before the half.
We talked about them being a second half team. You can see their ranks here and how good they've been in the second half. I agree with you, Tom. I'm not sure you don't run the ball here. You need to bring some clock down, because an incompletion here, a punt, and 2 timeouts by Detroit is going to give them more time and opportunity than you want.
Well, they're going to throw it on 3rd down. Cutler down the middle of the field. And he finds Sam Hurd, only his 7th catch of the season.
Just a deep in route here. Linebackers probably needed to get a little bit more depth to take away this lane. And now Chicago, with 1 timeout, has some opportunity.
Butler throws, far side catch, and then stepping out of bounds is Bennett.
Well, the officials aren't going to have a tough time recognizing whether Bennett's in bounds or out of bounds, because his shoes could get you to cross your eyes here.
Well, it got him a $5,000 fine for wearing those orange shoes in Philadelphia on Monday night. Orange shoes and all. It's Bennett again inside the 25 to the 23.
Timeout, Chicago.
And Chicago will spend the timeout.
Again, the inside of the defense. That's twice now that the inside coverage has not gotten deep enough to take away these deep inside routes. That's 2 plays in a row that have allowed them to get down the field. Now in scoring position with 23 seconds. They have an opportunity here, because now on a 1st down they can run the ball, they can throw it, they can dirt it if they want to stop the clock. They have a lot of latitude to try to get themselves positioned for a touchdown, and that they're clearly in field goal position. What you can't do is get sacked out of that field goal position.
Well, the Bears have scored the most points in the NFL on drives that began with 2 minutes or less in a half, and they're about to tack on to that number, well within field goal range at the 22. Cliff Averill coming off the edge, got a piece of the arm of Cutler. Not sure what Jay is upset about.
He was looking for a personal foul. Averill just coming from the outside. Ducks underneath the rush, kind of tackles him going down. Nothing malicious there, a push. And Dominican Sue, yeah, that goes back to the rep now. They're complaining more about the rep than the actual action.
I got to tell you, I wonder if that was a strip of the football by Averill.
It looked like the hand was going forward. Of course, any challenge has got to come from above, and it looks like that's what we're going to get.
You know, when you start to take a look at it, that last replay we showed you.
Ruling on the field is an incomplete pass.
But after watching it for a second time.
Has the hand started forward? That's the key. Looks like it was still going back as it was initially hit. It ended up being pushed that way, but watch as the ball tipped. It's not yet going forward. It gets tipped out, and now the arm just kind of pushes it forward. We saw a play like this in Kansas City last week. I think this could be ruled a fumble, and now the second element, was it clearly recovered by Detroit? It was. Now this would be a bit of a dodged bullet, because they're clearly, what we say, at the very minimum, you have it, you're in 3-point range. The last thing you want to do is turn the ball over and take the 3 points ostensibly off the board.
Let's bring in Mike Pereira from the Fox Command Center. Mike, there's a lot going on here, isn't there?
There's so much going on here. Here to me is the key. It's a fumble, but they ruled it an incomplete pass, and you can review that if there's an immediate recovery. But you didn't have that here. If you go back and And if you follow the play from the live shot, you're going to see that the ball ends up just rolling dead and nobody really makes an attempt to recover it. So that's why I think you see players have stopped. So you have no choice here. Even though it's a fumble, you certainly can't give the ball to the defense because there was no recovery in the immediate action after the play. So I think you got to leave it as to what it was ruled an incomplete pass. Nothing you can do.
So where do they spot that, Mike?
Well, they could go back and leave it as the ruling of the incomplete pass because you can't assume that the offense would have recovered it. And I believe that's really the rule, that you can't assume a recovery by the offense or the defense. So without that, without any clear recovery, you just stay with the ruling of incomplete pass.
You know, that's why so frequently, and Mike, thank you very much, Brian, that's why so frequently you'll see it happen maybe 1 or 2 times a year in the NFL where everybody will talk about it for 1 or 2 days after the game. What a heads-up play by blank. If one player on the Detroit team races after that football, picks it up, they begin the football right now, according to what Mike Pereira just told us.
And that's what you're always coaching your players. You used to say what? Play to the whistle, but you don't do that anymore because of the rules we have in the league. You have to play beyond the whistle in case of a play like this, or was it a down by contact? The number of rules now that the league, and you don't want to get anybody hurt, but clearly that's one they needed to play past the whistle.
Well, Pete Morelli came out from under the hood and now is talking with John Hussey down there.
His head too, saying, you know what we're going to do with this thing?
After reviewing the play, the ball was knocked out of the quarterback's hand. It is a fumble. However, no one recovered the ball in the immediate area. By rule, a forward fumble is brought back to the spot of the fumble. It'll be Chicago's ball, 3rd down, at the spot of the fumble.
So it's not an incomplete pass. It is a fumble, but it's at the spot of the fumble because no recovery. So they back up a little bit, but that doesn't kill him here as opposed to a turnover. Everything going against the Chicago Bears. Oh boy, he's going, almost had it done. Everything going against, you know, as a Detroit Lion right now, it's okay. What else can go against us? Let's see if we can come out in the second half.
So the ball is backed up to the 32-yard line. It's a loss of 10, but the Bears, most importantly, still have the ball. The Bears are out of timeout, so Cutler will step out of bounds, chased by Sue. And they're going to spot it, let's see, 24-yard line.
Now, Tom, we've been here before, 11 seconds. That should give you, on a 3rd down, more than enough time to basically take an end zone shot. You don't have time to hand the ball off here, but you're going to take an end zone shot, and it's all or nothing, incomplete. You're going to have a chance to throw a, oh, they brought the kicker in right from the get-go. They're not even going to test it. We ran into this earlier in Buffalo where Philadelphia tried to squeeze another play, and it cost them the opportunity for a field goal. Given that, Philadelphia's decision cost them some points. Lovie Smith saying 11 seconds, not enough for me. I'm going to go ahead with the points.
Of course, Jim Schwartz, you know, you look at his last 2 visits here into Chicago. Who could ever forget? You and I were here September the 12th of last year on what everybody and his brother thought was a touchdown, but because of the very intricate part of the rules and a receiver and the continuation of play, they were denied a game-winning touchdown pass, and now you hear a fumble. It's clearly a fumble. His player ultimately recovered the ball, but again, because of intricate language, his team will not get the turnover, and the Bears, in fact, will have a chance to add to their lead.
And that's going to be his message to his teams at halftime. Guys, absolutely everything's gone against us. Let's even this thing up in the second half because we can't have worse luck than we had in this first half.
43-yard field goal try by Gold, who's 2 of 2 in the game. And this one is no good. He pushed it to the right. Well, I'm sure many who root for the Lions are saying justice is served. They'll never forget that play, though, last year in the waning moments here in the opening weekend of the season. Neither will we.
And you know what? if people got to remember, with all the discussion about this play afterwards, the rule did not change. They just brought sharper focus to it. I keep remembering what my mother told me on the way to the airport after that game. I tried to explain to her why that wasn't a touchdown, and all 89 years of her said, "Oh my, that just doesn't make sense."
Well, at the end of the first quarter, it was 2 turnovers and 10 points. It's a 14-point spread at half. And Fox NFL Sunday continues with the Visa halftime report coming up next. Moments away from the start of the second half. And you really look inside the numbers, and it all boils down to those 2 critical turnovers for Detroit.
Well, we're a 2-score differential, and we've got the 2 big turnovers. So what Detroit needs to do, obviously one solid drive here, brings them back to within a touchdown. They obviously can't turn the ball over, and they've been good up to this point. They haven't run the ball consistently, and I'm a little concerned about Matthew Stafford. We saw the Atlanta game a couple weeks ago. Never really settled in. You expected him to come back in the second half and do that. I want to see if Matthew Stafford can get back into a groove in this second half of the game to see if he can throw them back into it.
Well, the first thing we're going to take a look at, see if he's wearing that glove, because, as you mentioned during the first half, I think everybody is, or at least we have been, surprised that he's been wearing it. Well, follow your favorite team all season long. Go to iTunes.com/NFL. They're still wearing the gloves, but of course, Detroit, their offense will sit on the sideline as Chicago gets the ball to begin the second half. Bears are 5-1 this season when leading at halftime. And one of the up men bringing it back is chopped down at the 30-yard line. There's Matt Spaeth.
This is a classic opportunity for Chicago. We talked in the open, Tom, about their commitment to the run now. It's not just we need to run, but we believe in our run. They're up by the 2 scores. They need to press that run right now to try to push this Detroit Lion defense around and set the tempo with a physical running game to start out this second half.
Should be noted, in the opening half, Detroit did a very good job against a run. Bears averaging just barely over 2 yards per carry. Forte at 11 rushes for 20 yards, and not much room here. In fact, he may have lost a yard. Forte, in 6 games in his career against the Lions, had averaged 141 rushing yards per game, and 116 against him in the first meeting. But he has been virtually invisible outside of the 1 touchdown run.
But at least there have been the 12 attempts. There's been times when the productivity wasn't there, and they abandoned that. The fact that they're continuing to try to push it, I think, is a positive.
Tough throw there by Cutler. Roy Williams looking for a flag that doesn't come. Great coverage by Eric Wright, the former Cleveland Brown.
He's not going to get this. Just great coverage. He can plead all he wants. Nice job switching off there. Again, we talked about it many times. You can put your hand on a receiver. The question is, have you changed his direction? Have you changed his impetus? He was just there with good coverage. I'm not sure you could have called that in basketball.
Well, 3rd down and 10 now for Cutler and the Bears on the opening possession of this second half. Thrown behind the intended target, the tight end, Kellen Davis. Let's check in downstairs before the punt with Laura Oakman.
I talked to Lovie Smith, who first of all wanted to single out Charles Tillman for his great coverage on Calvin Johnson. Offensively, Jay Cutler taking way too many hits, wants to tighten up that protection. Devin Hester, he will be going in the second half, but they did take him in right before halftime, a little bit woozy, evaluated him. Lovie said he is going to try to go, but won't have the same energy. Back to you.
All right, Laura, thank you very much. Podlesh to put it away. Angling Logan over near the sideline. Great punt. In fact, too good. The turnover early forced by Peppers led to a Matt Forte touchdown. Then Nate Burleson stripped by Tim Jennings, who also covered it up. Led to a Robbie Gould field goal. And then, of course, whenever we're watching the Chicago Bears, you're always watching the return game of Devin Hester. Wondered if he would play today after injuring his ankle on Monday night. An 82-yard punt return for a touchdown. First down, they give it to Morris. Gang tackled after a gain of 2.
Led the way for the Bears. Well, I like the fact that the Detroit Lions are trying some more conventional runs. We've seen Stephon Logan in the backfield. We've seen Nate Burleson in the backfield trying to set up some unique runs, but the straight, more conventional traps and draws from the running back position is going to be a big part of getting Matthew Stafford back on rhythm as well.
Touchdown, Chicago! Major Wright. Well, he got his first career interception on Monday night against Philadelphia. This is his first career touchdown.
I don't know if this is a miscommunication or he flat didn't see it. Scheffler broke to the outside just on a little flat route as a drop off. Stafford deciding to go to the outside just to pick up a few. And I can't believe that he could have possibly seen him because that ball was clearly behind Scheffler.
Point after is good. Your defense gives you a 3-and-out. And on your second play in the second half, that's about as easy as it gets for Major Wright. (27-6) after the interception returned for a touchdown by Major Wright. That's the first interception thrown in the second half of the game this entire year by Matthew Stafford. And this has not been one so far anyway, and we nearly have an entire half to play. But for Matthew Stafford, it's been a rough go for him and his offense. 5 turnovers in the first 8 games of the year. They've turned it over virtually 3 times and a half.
You know, we've been making a bit about the gloves with Stafford. I don't know if you're just being stubborn now, saying, okay, it's not the gloves. I'm not going to blame the gloves. Okay. But there's no question Matthew Stafford doesn't have the same feel for the ball right now. And that can be a very tactile type of thing. Your hand on the ball, it can make a difference.
Good throw and a catch made by Burleson for a first down up to the 34-yard line. But make no mistake about it, this game is a long, long ways from being over.
They have the weapons, Detroit does, with Calvin Johnson on the outside. Brandon Pettigrew at tight end has had a real solid year. Nate Burleson's been able to come up with some big plays. So they have the assets to get the ball down the field. They just have to develop some type of consistency.
Morris on a first down carry for close to 3. Green Bay and Minnesota will play tomorrow night. Green Bay, the only unbeaten team in the league, but we talked about how critically important this game, how critically important it is indeed for Chicago.
Right now, and it's a silly thing to say because we're not headed to the playoffs yet, but Detroit and Chicago would be the 5 and 6 seed. So these head-to-heads, it's not just about the division. It's about if it comes down to that wild card spot, those 2 wild card spots, these heads-to-heads competition could be huge.
Screen to Maurice Morris, and he'll be about 1.5 yards shy of a first down. Let's check in back in Los Angeles with Kurt Menefee.
Well, since you're talking playoff seeding, maybe the Giants-Niners is a battle for the number 2 seed in the NFC. Mario Manningham with the first touchdown by either squad today. Nice catch, 13-yard score. Giants take a 13-12 lead. Tom and Brian.
Good game.
New York, you got to be impressed with what New York's doing, particularly with on the road to New England. If they can hold up against San Francisco, coast to coast, that would be impressive.
Charles Tillman, another interception return for a touchdown. It appeared as though Stafford stared down his receiver right from the snap of the ball.
And he's pleading his case to Scott Linehan. That, again, he could not have anticipated. He thought they were going to do something that they did because he threw it right into the teeth of the defense. You can see the combination out here. I don't know what he thought was going to happen. Same one that we just saw in the other interception, a flat route with a crow route in behind it. He just threw it flat into coverage. He no more saw Tillman than he saw Major Wright on the previous interception for a touchdown.
Well, I tell you, it's not going to win him many friends. You saw that last replay as a defender. Tillman went by him. Stafford's got his arms in the air looking at one of his receivers. Charles Tillman, his 4th career interception return for a touchdown. This one going for 44 yards. Bears have returned 2 Matthew Stafford interceptions for touchdowns here in the first, well, not even 4 minutes of the second half.
Because of the amount of cover 2 that Chicago plays, the corners here don't get much credit for as good as they are. Charles Tillman's a good corner.
Oh, yeah.
And he's able to match up one-on-one. He's not a name that you hear readily because of the style of play for Chicago. But that's against Charles Johnson there, or excuse me, Calvin Johnson. That's a pretty good matchup.
I got to tell you, Brian, you and I have talked about this before. I am stunned that Tillman has never been to the Pro Bowl. This guy's been a good player for a long time in this league.
Well, let's look at the matchup here. You're going to see him at the very top of the screen here. And Stafford, I don't know whether he thought Calvin Johnson was going to work back. And Tillman just fell off the coverage. There was hand fighting going on there. There was no penalty. Now, and it looks like Matthew Stafford thinks there should be pass interference. Calvin Johnson just kind of threw him back into the route. You can see right there Stafford's going right at the official like, wait a minute, where's the pass interference? There's nothing there. That was just hand fighting. Calvin Johnson kind of threw him into the ball underneath.
Stafford going to hand it off to Morris on first down. That'll be a gain of 8.
Well, we're only 11 minutes in the third quarter, but we're at the point now where offensive coordinator Scott Linehan kind of takes that game plan, kind of fold it, put it in your back pocket, and start drawing it up in the dirt, because this is a hill now. You got to get this thing downhill, downfield as quickly as you possibly can.
Good coverage by Conti on Pettigrew, and let's check in again back in Los Angeles with Kurt.
Tough day for Matthew Stafford. Hey, similar story for Joe Flacco. He gets picked off by David Hawthorne of Seattle, set up a field goal. Baltimore also fumbled 2 kickoffs. Both those set up field goals, and right now the Seahawks trying to pull the upset, 22-10 late in the third. Tom and Brian.
Tom, don't ask me how to explain this game.
I was getting ready to ask you.
I mean, you watch what they did to the Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, maybe the best team in the AFC. They go out to Seattle, and boy, I don't know how to explain this anymore. It's above my pay grade.
I'm not sure anything's above your pay grade. There's a catch made by Pettigrew, and that's a first down to the 34.
Well, and you look at these two teams right here. Now, on Monday night, and that was a big game, Detroit at home, all but at home, really a dominant 24-13 win. And that score sounds closer than it really was. And now this is as one-sided a game as you and I have done all year long. I don't know how you explain it from one week to the next.
Keelan Williams, his first carry of the game. That'll be a 1-yard pickup. Second down upcoming for the Lions. Closing in on the 10-minute mark. And we're only in the third quarter. Second time in team history the Bears have returned 2 interceptions for touchdowns. Did it against another of their storied rivals, the Green Bay Packers. Up to the 41-yard line, Pettigrew. That'll bring up a third down and 4. Of course, give the Bears credit. I mean, this is a team that comes in on a 3-game winning streak. Talked about how philosophically they got back to what has made them a winning football team since Lovie Smith took over in 04. Great defense and running the ball.
Yeah, we can talk about the offense and Jay Cutler and what they should be doing, but the Chicago Bears are about defense. When they made their run into the Super Bowl in 2006, it was on the back of a great defense. Last year, into the championship game and the subsequent years in between. Why? Because their defense was on the back half of the league.
Well, Detroit down 34-6. Will send out the punt team.
Well, we see Earl Bennett's back now, not Devin Hester. You got a little sigh of relief if you're Detroit. Laura talked about Devin Hester coming out and a little bit woozy. I'm not quite sure what I understood when Lovie Smith said he wouldn't be as enthusiastic. I don't know quite what that means, but he's not back returning punts.
Malone angles to the sideline. It has been a rough start in the first quarter. Even uglier to start the third for Stafford and the Lions. Like to remind you, Fox Tomorrow Television's biggest adventure is all new. Loyalty's put to the test when a son must choose between betraying his family and saving the girl he left behind. An all-new Terra Nova. Tomorrow, 8 Eastern, 7 Central on Fox. A lot of smiling going on over on that Chicago sideline. 34-6, Bears lead it. That one just sailed on Jay Cutler. I'd like to remind you, you can get coverage of every NFL game with NFL Mobile. All Star NFL Now. It's pretty cool. Brian, you've got it on your iPad. All of a sudden, you can start punching up any game right on cue and watch it going on around the league.
We were watching it before our game started here. Good combination.
Forte, his best run of the afternoon. Across midfield. And caught at the 38-yard line by Amari Spivey.
Great block by Lance Lewis, number 60, as you come in here. And what this is the brilliance of Matt Forte. Watch this subtle. Right now, clearly, you got nothing in behind it. Look at that subtle. Do you see that subtle little move to the right? He is so smooth, so subtle. Watch him change directions even subtly here. Mike March talked about Marshall Faulk-like in the sense of his ability to change direction at full speed.
Forte's 11th carry of 20 or more yards on the year. That's most in the NFL. And now they'll give him a breather and hand it to Marion Barber. Well, after that 40-yard gain, the number's a bit more impressive for Forte, but he is having a spectacular year.
Well, we've talked all game long about their commitment to the run, and this game necessarily isn't a good example of it because of the turnovers and the way it's gone. But looking at the film, there's no question of the commitment. Mike Tice, the offensive line coach, a big part of it. His communication with Mike Martz. They've recrafted what they're doing offensively, and it is a much more emphasis on the run and a commitment to it, not just an emphasis.
Barber cuts it back to the inside. He's to the 31-yard line. They're winding down out in San Francisco. Let's get an update from Kurt back in Los Angeles.
And the 49ers have gotten their first touchdown of the game. Vernon Davis saw the nice reception and a leap into the end zone. Puts San Fran on top in this battle of first-place teams, 20-13 after they get the two-point conversion. It's now 13-22 left to go in regulation. Tom and Brian.
All right, Kurt, thank you very much. I know you'll keep us updated on the final 12 minutes of that one.
Yeah, Mike Martz, we've been talking about. He's kind of come over to the dark side. You know, from the greatest show on turf, that commitment to the run. It's been a big part of the success they had last year in their championship run, or their run to the championship game. And we've already talked about the difference. Even in this year, when they started out 1-2, Tom, and struggled to get that rhythm in the run, they were averaging less than 17 runs a game. And it showed up because Jay Cutler was making the mistakes we've seen Jay Cutler make. And then they come back and they get on this 4-1 run of games. They're running better than 30 times a game. Changes the whole personality of the team and the opportunity for Jay Cutler to make big plays off of it.
50-yard attempt for Robbie Gould, who's hit 2 of 3 on the afternoon. Good snap, good hold. Does it have enough? Boy, does it have it. Okay, there are a lot of guys who have the elements on their side. Gould is not, and he is one of the premier kickers in the league. A standing ovation here at Soldier Field. Lieutenant Colonel Ed Godfrey being recognized, U.S. Marine Corps. It's too bad it took so long, but never too late. Stadiums every single Sunday recognizing servicemen and women, and no one sitting down at Soldier Field. And look at the emotion for Lieutenant Colonel Ed Godfrey.
That's
good
great.
for him. Wow.
That's a great shot. That's a great shot.
Doesn't get any better than that. I would imagine his kids, those being perhaps his grandkids, and proud. Oh, you better believe it. Logan sticks a fork in it and turns a corner and turns it into a pretty nice return.
Well, the history of the Detroit Lions over the last decade, we know what they've had to overcome. And Jim Schwartz, when you sit and visit with him, and the mindset, the culture he's had to change, how to learn to be a winner. It's one thing to win games, and they have done that. They finished last year well. They started out so far this year. But to learn to be a good team and to maintain that pace as a good team, he has confidence in this team, and he will going forward in this game. But he's got a quarter and a half to show that you do know how to be a good team, even though everything's gone against you.
Pettigrew on a short gain. 6-minute mark to go in the third quarter. Stafford 19 out of 37, 157 yards. 2 interceptions, both of them returned for touchdowns in this third quarter.
And now they shift into a no huddle, down by 21. Even with 5:42 left in the third quarter, time does become a factor.
Yeah, that's that BYU math again.
I know, 31, good Lord.
Yeah.
That got away from me.
That was that all that time you spent out at Stanford.
I know.
Kevin Smith is back in a Detroit uniform. Touches a ball for the first time after they signed him last week. It's nice to see Smith healthy again and getting a chance to resurrect his career again. Looking long for Johnson. Beautiful throw. And out of bounds at the 20-yard line. Great touch on that throw by Matthew Stafford.
And I'm surprised it took this long to take this shot with enough press coverage. Tillman already with one interception under his belt, has matched up well. I'm a little surprised we're not seeing a little more of that loose coverage by Chicago, knowing that at 31 points, the time does become a factor. I imagine we'll see a little bit more of it going forward.
They stepped out of bounds at the 23-yard line, so Stafford will just throw it away on first down. Let's go for a game break one more time for more on the Giants and 49ers. Kurt?
In just over a minute, the 49ers scored, picked off Eli Manning, and then scored again. Kendall Hunter's 17-yard touchdown run. They're up 27-13. By the way, Hunter in the game because Frank Gore is out with a knee injury. Nonetheless, the 49ers up by 14 at home. Tom and Brian.
Got to tell you, Brian, I don't know how many more wins the 49ers have to get. And, of course, that one's not over yet before everybody in the NFL is believing in what Jim Harbaugh said. Titus Young came back to get it and then stretches ahead down to the 10-yard line for a first down.
When you talk about San Francisco, we're there next week. Anxious to see. We had them early in that tight loss to
their only loss
to Dallas, and their only loss that they easily could have won. They're winning it the old-fashioned way: play great defense, run the ball. Alex Smith not turning the ball over.
To the end zone, incomplete.
We're giving them plenty of opportunities, matching up one-on-one with, and this says a lot about Lovie Smith's confidence in Tillman to go one-on-one with Calvin Johnson. Not too many opportunities more than this. He'll normally make that catch, but on a night like tonight, nothing seems to work.
Second and 10 from the 11. Try to come back to Johnson again. It'll be third down.
Watch Tillman here now, being physical with a big man like Charles Johnson now, and that's clear within the 5-yard rule. You got to be careful the ball's not in the air, but it's all about being. It's got to be very, very physical with a guy like Calvin Johnson, because you're not going to just run with him and think you're going to out-jump him.
Scheffler dropped it. That ball's right on the money.
And Scheffler's one here that inside the red zone. He doesn't have a lot of catches this year, but he does have 3 touchdowns on the season. He's a guy that Matthew Stafford goes to. There again, we just saw Calvin Johnson drop one. We saw Scheffler drop one. It just is the way the night is going. That's not much of an analysis. That's not meant to be an excuse. It's just not going the Detroit Lions way.
Well, 4th and 10, obviously they're going to go down 37-6. Jump ball looking for Calvin Johnson, and it's batted down. The Bears on their way to picking up their 4th straight win to move into a 2nd place tie in the NFC North. Well, Johnson and Stafford having a great year, but today has just not been their day, nor the Lions' day. For the quarter and 4 minutes still to go. First down carry by Barber. A loss of a yard. Good play by Delmas up from the safety spot. Matt Forte getting a breather. Of course, the way he's been going this year, Brian Billick, he might need a breather from time to time over the second half of this year.
You know, when you have a back like Matt Forte, and obviously if the Bears can continue to stay on this path, you do have to take into account, you like to keep a guy under that 350 touch number count. because there's a cumulative fatigue. You'd like for him to be fresh in the playoffs. I had that with Jamal Lewis, where we were very conscious on a 2,000-yard rushing year how many times he was going to touch it. In games, we were in control.
Well, they were able to get it away off the fingertips, and a flag comes down. That's Nick Fairley, the #1 pick out of Auburn.
Personal foul, roughing the passer, number 98. 15-yard penalty, automatic, first down.
And it's one thing to bring a guy down, but it's that last little impetus. Reminds me of the Tony Saragusa and Rich Gannon shot in our championship game where it knocked Rich Gannon out. It's that last little drive to the turf that's going to get called.
Detroit leads the NFL in roughing the passer. That's their 5th. I tell you what, Cutler's very lucky that he wasn't seriously hurt.
That's the kind you get a shoulder shot on when that much weight. Fairley's a big man, 300-pounder. That drive into right there and lands on the shoulder. That's the thing that you worry about. That one's going to cost him.
That's going to cost him a lot. Of course, he was so fired up as Fairley about getting a chance to play over the second half of the year. Inactive the first 4 games with a foot injury going back to training camp. Played 3 games, re-aggravated the injury, sat out against Denver. And they're hoping that he can really contribute in the second half of the year.
The combination of he, obviously, and Ndamukong Suh, Corey Williams, who has had a good first half of the season, that's an inside presence that very few teams have. And as a big part, we talked earlier in the open, their ability to come on the inside and open up Vanden Bosch and Averill on the outside. But this, not a very good night tonight. He'll learn from it. But this front 4 of the Detroit Lions could be one to deal with if they can somehow rebound from this very one-sided loss to Chicago.
Second down carry, no room there. Good tackle by Justin Durand. Again, let's check in with Kurt Menefee. They're going back and forth in San Francisco.
Yeah, and the Giants get what they needed. Down 14 points. Eli Manning picking up with Hakeem Nicks on a 32-yard score. Pulls them to within a touchdown, 27-20, halfway through the 4th quarter. Tom, Brian, and Laura.
Well, Brian, I want to get back to something you talked about a moment ago. And you know, the touches of Matt Forte, and you went down this road with Jamal Lewis, as you mentioned. Forte has not been in on this offensive series with Chicago leading by 31. But much had been made about Forte in the final year of his contract. Wanting to stay in Chicago, his Cutler is scrambling around, and will be tackled at the 28-yard line. Well, when you're a head coach, you're sort of stuck in the middle to some degree, aren't you? Between the player and the things he wants to do and the numbers and all that kind of thing, and then ownership and whether or not they're going to pay the guy, whether they want him back. The Bears say they want Forte back.
Yeah, and as a coach, you can't get drawn into that conversation, even though ultimately you're going to be a factor because you are one to dictate or help be part of the discussion is where our resources go, who do we want to re-sign. But Lovie Smith's got to, and wisely so, hold that at arm's length. Look, your people, let your people and our people take care of it. You and I keep this player-coach relationship. Oh, my gosh.
Logan bobbles it, but recovers it at the 21.
And we're seeing an example of it here. This is very smart on Lovie Smith's part. You don't get too many games like we are now with a 31-point lead to where you can put your star player down and give him an opportunity. It's like a mini break. Here you can see, and this comes back to the commitment to the run. We did the Carolina game. That was the first real explosion in their running game. They've been well, with the exception of Minnesota, above 100 yards. This is an opportunity to rest Matt Forte because you got to believe going forward they're going to need him, and that factors into the equation, certainly. I know he's frustrated without the contract. He needs to put it at arm's length. Quit talking about it. It will take care of itself.
Kevin Smith up across the 35 to the 37-yard line. We brought up Smith earlier. Drafted in the 3rd round in 2008. You may remember his rookie year. He ran for nearly 1,000 yards. Came back in 09. Had over 1,200 yards from scrimmage, but then got hurt. early in the first half of last season and went on the injured reserve. Burleson up to the 45-yard line, and that should be the final play. It will be the final play in the
That
third
is the
quarter.
end of the third quarter.
A third quarter that started with a pair of interceptions returned for touchdowns. Major Wright, Charles Tillman, and their last drive stalled in the end zone. Set to begin the final quarter. Soldier Field in Chicago, a game dominated right from the opening gun by the home team. Calvin Johnson is leveled by Lance Briggs, and a penalty flag is not thrown. Or is it? Yes, it is. Looked like a jarring hit to the head by Briggs.
Personal foul, unnecessary roughness, defense. 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
You're just going to see Lance Briggs here come in. This is the one that frustrates the player. They think they're just playing football. He leads with the shoulder. Needed to lower the target a little bit, because even though it started low, it worked its way right up into the head, and we know that's going to get called and fined.
Yeah, this thing, the officials better do whatever it is they need to do and visit with the coaches on the sideline, because this thing has a chance to get ugly.
It does. When you have this much time and it's so lopsided, the emotions start to creep into it. You're exactly right. The officials have got to jump all over anything that pops up.
Well, make no mistake about it. There are going to be a lot of teams around the league. And whether you believe that the Lions play dirty at times, whether you believe they're right on the edge, whether you believe they're just a team that is playing through the whistle, the bottom line is they are creating the perception out there that they're doing some things that a lot of teams don't like. Now, some people will say, well, too bad. And you know what? Maybe that's the case. But when teams get a chance to now turn that around on you, you can take it to the bank. It's coming.
Sure. And they're not going to throw up any white flags. Hey, we'll give what we get. We'll get what we give. And remember, let's remember this rivalry now. This is one of the old-time rivalries. Detroit, Chicago. It's a heated rivalry. It doesn't feel right that way this second because it's so one-sided, but that doesn't mean the passion's still not there.
Kevin Smith again for a yard. We talked about Forte getting a breather. The same old's true for Peppers. He came in after re-aggravating that knee injury, and apparently they're looking at it again.
Yeah, when you're up by 31, this is the opportunity to give some of your star players a chance. Like I said earlier, you don't typically get this kind of an opportunity in an NFL game, and you got to take advantage of it when you can.
Intercepted. This time by Tim Jennings. Jennings still streaks down the sideline and is leveled out of bounds. And a penalty flag, and there's a fight on the field. And the 45. And I mean bodies from both sidelines come racing out in front of the Lions bench. I mean, there are guys pushing and shoving away from the action. Charles Tillman has been buried on the sideline there at midfield. Israel Adonijah was the last one to get up from the original pile. Lance Briggs in the middle of it all. The NFL will be able to operate a hedge fund after all the fines from this game.
And you can see what prompted here with the interception at the end. Guys hustling to the end. And then the sideline just erupts. I'm not quite sure.
I think it started with Stafford, to be honest with you, because he grabbed DJ Moore by the helmet, it looked like, and threw him to the ground. Pay attention of what happened with Stafford as he now grabs the back of the helmet of Moore and pulls him straight down to the ground.
And then Moore retaliated by going back at him, and the melee ensues. Yeah, because this itself was no big deal. I thought it was maybe the shot out of bounds, but clearly it was the exchange between Moore and Matthew Stafford. And you got to give the officials great credit to sort that thing out, because that thing looked like it was going to last a while. More reminiscent of a hockey game there. You see the Blackhawks jersey. But nice job by the officials, because, boy, you threw yourself in the middle of that. That's a lot of big people.
Detroit is challenging the ruling on the field that after the interception, the defender was down by contact.
This goes back to the interception in the spot, back at where the interception took place.
Those were the last words I was expecting after all that from Pete Morelli. I'd like to tell you about The Last Lions. Premieres on the National Geographic Channel this weekend. Check your local listings.
Clearly here he's down. Great interception, just basically out battling for the ball, and now this is clearly going to go down, but this is where all the fun starts. Stafford, obviously the frustration showing here, the pushing and shoving, and DJ Moore going back at him, didn't like it, and now here we go.
The two guys that really got locked up were Charles Tillman and Gosders Cherilus, as it started drifting away from that pile and creating another with those two in the thick of it.
Well, both coaches have to make a concerted effort to get it under control now.
After reviewing the play, the receiver was down by contact at the 16.5-yard line. There was a personal foul on the play, personal foul, unnecessary roughness, late hit, number 30 of the intercepting team, and he will be ejected from the game.
So DJ Moore, after going after Stafford, showed you the replay of Stafford grabbing a hold of Moore and pulling him down.
And you can say this is the typical second act, you know, what Stafford did. How serious was that? But the fact that he came back at him the way he did. And when I say the coach has got to just get this under control, it's really harder for Lovie Smith right now when you're up. You can understand the frustration where Detroit is right now. As Lovie Smith with his team, you do not want to let the focus. This is where injuries happen. The fans are applauding it. It's easier to have that attitude when you're up by 31. This is where you can't let the focus get away from your football team. We got 13 minutes and 20 seconds still to play. Not only from the standpoint is you got to look sharp, but this is where injuries happen if you don't keep the focus, and that's just an example.
It all really began on this play, and this is a dirty play. Fairly driving Cutler's right shoulder into the ground, drill penalty flag. The very next possession, Briggs to the head of Calvin Johnson. And all of that culminating with a scrum in front of a Lions sideline a moment ago. Forte back in the game and back to the line of scrimmage.
And as I said, we got better than 13 minutes, so I understand why Forte is in there. But I'd also understand if Lovie Smith just pulled him out altogether at this point. I mean, you've got the game under control. Detroit's shown no sign of their ability to come back, although they'll get in the no huddle and try to impact it as best they can. But we're at midway point of the season, and a back never really does. At this point, a back very rarely even practices, because the cumulative hits, I've always said, the running back takes more of a pounding in pro football than any other position by far.
Durant drags down Forte, a loss of 2. Let's check in again with Kurt Menefee.
Well, Joe Flacco has thrown a career-high 52 passes in Seattle, but this is his first touchdown His team still trails. Ed Dixon pulls him a little closer. It's 22-17. Less than 6 minutes to go. Seahawks still trying to get the upset. Tom and Brian.
Of course, Flacco had the miracle comeback against the Steelers last week in the final seconds.
And brought him back the week before in a game we did at Arizona, with Arizona, who had jumped up 21 or 24-3 actually, and brought him come back from that standpoint. He's pretty good when they spread it out and get into that gun. We should see more of it.
Will delay to Forte, and Chicago will punt it. You talked about getting your running back out of the game. If you're Lovey, do you think about now starting to pull Jay Cutler out of the game?
You know, you can protect your quarter. I mean, if he's just going to turn around and hand off the ball, you know, I don't know that you have to do that. And you also have to keep in mind, you want to make sure you're sending the right message. No one on that sideline would question or second guess taking Matt Forte out of the game. The problem is the next guy's got to step up. You're putting more snaps at some other people. We'll see indeed if Julius Peppers goes back in the game. They were working on him. We'll see if he goes back in the defense or whether he's done for the night.
Penalty flag down. You know, you saw those numbers a moment ago for Cutler. 9 of 18 for 123 yards. He's not thrown a touchdown, nor has he thrown an interception. Forte has run for 61 yards. If somebody would have told you Cutler throwing and Forte rushing would not have 200 combined yards, and the Bears had 37 points, you'd have never bought it.
No, or the next question is, okay, where did the turnovers come? Tell me what Devin Hester did, because I had to know. There's a whole bunch of special teams play and a whole bunch of turnovers. Let's add up the interception yards that go the other way and add it on to Cutler and Forte, and now the yards will make sense.
You got it.
Unsportsmanlike conduct. Number 35 of the kicking team. Player went out of bounds, did not come back in a reasonable time. Detroit is elected to take the punt over, 4th down.
And you're going to see the gunner out of bounds. You have got to make a reasonable attempt. That's just way too far down the field. You can't use the sideline or the paint to keep the defensive guys off you. You've got to make that effort to get back into the field of play.
So with 11:08, we will punt it again.
These are the times, as I said, as a coach, that really, you know, it's great that you're up this way and you can see that you got a victory likely in hand, but there's so many things you worry about: the focus of your team, the health of your team, any other number of decisions in terms of how are we going to finish this out. It tells you as much about your team as a come from behind win.
Podlesh from the end zone, and Logan at the 45, and is dropped right there. That's by the man who committed the penalty, Zachary Bowman. They'll be celebrating in Chicago tonight. Bears big in the 4th. 37-6 with 10:59 to play. Talked about the Bears with just 191 yards of offense. But Brian, you challenged us to figure out the total yards on a punt return for a touchdown, 2 interception returns for a touchdown. That would add up to a total of 150 yards.
And that would make sense. Yeah, those numbers up.
24-yard return on a touchdown by Major Wright, 44 by Tillman, and the 82-yard punt return for a touchdown by Hester. First down catch by Kevin Smith, and let's go back to L.A. and Curtin.
In the 4th quarter, Eli and the Giants convert 2 4th downs. Here's their 3rd. That'll be a game ender. Swatted away, 4th and 2 inside the 10. 49ers hang on. Less than a minute to go. They're up by 7. Tom?
That's Justin Smith, been around for a long time. He's batted down that pass against Smith. out of the backfield to the 31-yard line. So the 49ers, one loss on the year, and of course the back half of their schedule, Brian, is loaded with divisional games, and let's be honest about it. Their division is without a doubt the worst division in the NFL, at least so far, out in the NFC West. You and I will see them against Arizona next week. Burleson the catch down to the 12-yard line. Green Bay's schedule is considerably tougher over the second half of the year, and you know, with only one loss separating the two teams, it's not inconceivable the 49ers could end up with a #1 seed.
And what a difference between that #1 seed being in San Francisco rather than having to go through Green Bay. Well, this is the type of thing I was talking about. You'd like to see your defense, if I'm Lovie Smith, see my defense finish off strong here in terms of the focus. You don't want a lot of mental errors. Obviously, you're going to play loose. Obviously, they're going to make some plays. But defensively, you want to finish strong and show that you know how to finish off a game like this.
To the end zone at the fingertips of Burleson.
Tom, Julius Peppers is out right now, but let's go back and look at what this phenomenal athlete has done. Obviously, the impact play to start the game against Calvin Johnson, forcing the fumble. Watch the athleticism here of Peppers, chasing down Matthew Stafford. This guy is an incredible athlete, both his motor, his athleticism. He has played every defensive line position there is to play in this game, moving him around, a big key for, as I said earlier, you want to block him fine, you want to double him fine, but you got to find him first.
Peppers standing and watching a 3rd and 10. Intercepted in the end zone. This one by Corey Graham. Penalty flag is down, and it's going to be holding.
Holding, number 76. Penalty will be declined.
Against Detroit, penalty is declined. First red zone interception this year thrown by Stafford. Four interceptions today thrown by Matthew Stafford. He had 4 interceptions the entire year coming into the game. And Forte is still in there. A 1-yard gain. Well, we welcome those of you who saw the thrilling finish, 49ers and the Giants. The 49ers picking up another very, very impressive win. 6 turnovers today for Detroit, who had turned the ball over 5 times total this entire season coming into this NFC North matchup. 1 game separating these two teams in the standings. And it started right from the get-go. Opening possession. Stripped by Julius Peppers. Fumble Calvin Johnson. Leading to a Matt Forte touchdown. Next possession. Stripped by Tim Jennings. Recovery by Tim Jennings. Led to a field goal. So 10-0 before you caught your breath. Devin Hester, we wondered would he play after the ankle sprain on Monday night. 82-yard punt return for a touchdown. The Bears led it at the break 20-6. Detroit was still very much in this game. And they were looking for momentum to begin the second half as a 3rd down pass is incomplete. On Detroit, very first possession of the second stanza. Interception return for a touchdown by Major Wright. Next possession, interception by Charles Tillman. Return for a touchdown. And then the first red zone interception thrown all year by Stafford just a moment ago. This one corralled by Corey Graham. But what might get the most publicity on the highlight shows later tonight, and the most talk in the interview room after the game, will be some of the hits, some of the penalties, and you'll be reading about plenty of fines coming out of this game from the league office. We'll bring you up to speed on some of that took place in this game when we come. 37-6. Chicago leading with 6:59 to go. Scheffler across the middle to the Chicago 38-yard line. No Calvin Johnson in the game right now. That interception a moment ago by Corey Graham in the end zone. It appeared as though Johnson took a couple of major hits. We'll show them to you here in a minute. Of course, he was leveled earlier in the game on that blow to the head by Lance Briggs. Now take a look in the end zone.
Yeah, they just obviously collide here, but it's the driving into the ground afterwards, just a kind of smashing of heads. Nothing deliberate necessarily, but anytime we're talking about a hit to the head, now comes into play the concussion protocol that kind of leaves the coach's hands, as it should, to could put in jeopardy what his availability will be next week. He'll likely have to go through that protocol during practice.
Written down by Roach. Well, it hadn't been all that long since the Lions turned it over 6 times in a game, less than 2 full years.
Keeping in mind they had 5 turnovers coming into the game total.
Titus Young to the 10.
We talked about what Chicago could get out of the game here in terms of finishing. Well, Detroit the same way. I don't care if you're down by 51. You want to finish strong. You want to, as a coach, what can I teach from this? This thing has been, I don't know that I'm going to show a lot of this film to my guys, but I will the latter part of the game to see how we execute it at the end of the game.
Nearly intercepted by Conti. For those of you that were watching the Giants and the 49ers, it all began with Nick Fairley driving Jay Cutler's right shoulder into the ground, drew a penalty. Next possession, Briggs drew a penalty on a hit to the head. And then on a punt return, Matthew Stafford on an interception return, I beg your pardon, got tangled up with Corey Graham. Graham went back after Stafford, who was thrown out of the game. That was DJ Moore, I beg your pardon, who went back after Stafford, and then you know what broke loose.
Well, this had the potential to be unbelievable. As I said at the time, the officials did a great job, and you can see the coaches there trying to separate it as well.
Broken up down near the goal line, 4th down. And a penalty flag back behind the line of scrimmage. This might be against, well, we'll see. There's a lot of jawing going on down there in that field.
Personal foul, chop block.
Ooh.
Number 51 offense. Penalty will be declined. 4th down.
Watch Dominic Paoli. You can't, once you're engaged like this, if it's one-on-one, that's fine. But the fact that he got initially hooked up with Peterman, you can't go low like that after the contact is initially high.
So Dominic Raiola, whistle for the penalty. Stafford has thrown the ball 62 times in a game. There will be a 63rd that will break the Lions record. Into the end zone, and that is a touchdown for Scheffler. Tell you what, we got 5 minutes to go, and you know, you just watch. They really got to corral what's going on down there on the field.
Yeah, it's going to continue to get chippy. We've seen it. Just a nice little quick out by Scheffler. We talked earlier about his presence in the red zone. He hasn't had a lot of catches on the year coming in, but he has 3 touchdowns, now 4. Dropped another one in the end zone earlier. He's a go-to guy in the red zone, but you're exactly right. With this much time left, these teams are now chipping at one another, and the officials have got to make sure they keep it under control or something serious is going to happen.
Well, Raiola had the penalty a moment ago, and then the very next play, he went after the rookie Mario Addison. Far left of your screen, 96 there on the left.
Now, the fact that itself is not illegal because it was one-on-one. We need to differentiate between the two. Now, obviously, late in the play here, some chipping going on as well. That's the kind of thing you're talking about, Tom. But it's important to point out the first one was a penalty because Peterman had engaged the defender. You can't cut someone at the thigh level or below when he's engaged. The second one is just one-on-one. You and me, we went at one another. It's tough, good football. Kind of glad Julius Peters isn't in there. Peppers, excuse me. That's the last thing you want is your lead horse and Julius Peppers in the game when that type of stuff is going on. That's what you worry about. Not, I mean, you don't want to get anybody hurt. Don't get me wrong, but you got. That's why I'd be very surprised if with 5 minutes, I'll be shocked if we see Devin Hester go back in there.
Bears expecting an onside kick. 5 minutes left. The ball continues to blow off the tee. We expected the wind to be a much bigger factor, and maybe the players will tell us after the game it was a really big factor.
Well, here it gusts. You know, I was down the field before the game, and this is always an issue when you're playing in Chicago, but it doesn't look like it was much of a factor today.
Sure-handed Johnny Knox hauls it in. Bears will come out on offense, and Caleb Haney will take over at quarterback for Jay Cutler.
Well, when you look what's coming forward for these teams, you know, Detroit is got a little bit of a hill to climb here. They get to play Carolina, but then they got Green Bay and New Orleans. Obviously, no easy task there. Because keep in mind now, these two teams, we talked about it, they split head-to-head. But there's going to be playoff implications when it comes to the wild card spot. I don't know that anybody's going to be able to catch Green Bay.
You know, the only thing, if you're a Lions fan, Brian, that, you know, you're saying to yourself, and believe me, after all the tough years they've had in Detroit, not only on the football field, but in that city in general, you know, they're elated this team has started 6-2, and rightfully so. But, you know, you look at who they played and who they beat. And really, you know, they had that gift-wrapped win against Dallas when Tony Romo threw all those interceptions in the second half, and they rallied back. They lost to the two best teams they had played this season, the 49ers and the Falcons. They beat these Chicago Bears early on.
Yeah, but you play who you play in
right.
order to give you. We could say the same thing about the New York Giants, and we're going to be tested in the second half. I think they're a good football team, but obviously they've overcome a huge legacy of 10 years of futility. You got to give Jim Schwartz, Martin Mayhew credit for what they've done there. They've had a certain level of success, but now take it to that next level, to be a playoff caliber team, to be a championship caliber team. That's the next step for them, and obviously it's not showing up today.
And the other matchup you did not see, and Brian, you alluded to it, these Lions have 2 games left with the Green Bay Packers. They have that road game at New Orleans. They have a road game in Oakland. They play San Diego at home. On the other side of the ledger, what about the Chicago Bears?
Well, the Bears get to jump into the AFC West and go figure that one. You know, as we look at the schedule coming up for them, they're going to go. They're going to be at home against San Diego. As you said, they then have to go to Oakland. And again, which team are you going to get? You're going to get the San Diego team that can run up the score and have a huge offensive day, or the one that now they're struggling at 4 and 5. Oakland's a very physical team. So as they make this run through the AFC West and then go into Seattle, or at home against Seattle, this is a fairly favorable schedule for Chicago coming up.
I don't know if I've ever seen a team in all the years we've been following football, and you've been in it a lot longer than I have never seen playing an entire conference in 4 consecutive games.
Yeah, that one I didn't until we just put it there. That one kind of jumped out at me as well. You know, they're trying to, of course, push the divisional games to the back end of the schedule, which is great because when you're playing in week 16 and 17, you'd like for it to have divisional impact, wild card impact. So if not within the division, clearly within the conference. But to make a run through the AFC, of course, if I got to pick a conference to play, I'm not sure. It's either the NFC West or the AFC West. If I get to pick one to go through, that's the one I'd want up.
Well, this year, maybe the AFC South.
Yeah, obviously, once you get past Houston, the rest of the way, it becomes a little bit easier.
Well, you got to look at Charles Tillman there a moment ago. I'm not so sure that Lovie Smith won't say after the game, as he did to Laura Oakland at halftime, that he's been our most valuable player in this win. What a job he did on Calvin Johnson in the game.
And we said it earlier. He doesn't get his due. You mentioned that it's a surprise he's not been in the Pro Bowl, and I would agree with you. But it's funny when you come out of certain systems, even within the football world, you think of guys a certain way. Well, okay, Chicago is a Tampa 2 team. Well, they're not really. They play a lot more off coverage than anybody else. But this guy we've seen, they've taken him and put him on their best player, Calvin Johnson.
Well, we're all the way down to the 2-minute warning. They were doing flips in Chicago before this one ever got started. They've been flipping ever since about the play of their beloved Bears. Final 2 minutes from Soldier Field, and Caleb Haney going to pitch it to Marion Barber. Bears just going to run out the clock to celebrate their 4th consecutive win coming up. Our football coverage does not end when the games are over. The OT. Break it all down from today. Look ahead to next week. America's #1 post-game show, the OT, presented by Lowe's, coming up right after the game, only on Fox. This has been a lengthy game here in Chicago. Barber again. So let's go ahead and put this one in the win column for Chicago. The teams will split the season series after Detroit won the first game back in week 5. So the Bears and the Lions will be tied. And right now, both of those teams would be in a playoff.
Yeah, and you're at the point in the season, of course, the coaches, what do we always hear from the coaches, players, it's just who's up next. We don't worry about it. We're just going to play the next team. But you start paying attention because these two teams are going to be competing for wild card. You know, maybe Chicago or Green Bay falls apart. I doubt it. We saw them last week. That team's not going to fall apart as long as Aaron Rodgers is healthy. But you start watching the San Franciscos, the New Yorks, the Atlantas, the New Orleans to see how that matchup is going, because that's who you're going to be competing for the 2 wild card spots.
Now this ought to wrap it up. Final 15 seconds will tick away. Just not the Lions' day today. They've been off to a good start. Jay Cutler and the Bears win their 4th straight game. Matthew Stafford will try and put this one behind him and get ready for next week. 37-13, Tillman and the Bears winning. Back with more from Soldier Field in a moment.